Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading today from Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 20. Sasamudram upavistirnam apashyan sumahatsaraha mahanmana iva svacham prasanna salilashayam sasamudram upavistirnam apashyan sumahatsaraha mahanmana iva svacham prasanna salilashayam sasamudram upavistirnam apashyan sumahatsaraha mahanmana iva svacham prasanna salilashayam. Apashyan sumahatsaraha mahanmanai vasvachan prasanna salilashayam sasamudra upavistirnam apashyan sumahatsaraha. Prasanna salilashayam sasamudram upavistirnam pasyan sumahasaraha mahanmana iva swacham prasanna salilashayam. Sasamudram upavistirnam pasyan sumahatsaraha mahanmana iva swacham prasanna salilashayam. Sasamudram upavistirnam apashyan sumahatsaraha mahanmana iva swacham prasanna salilashayam. Sasamudram, almost near the ocean. Upa, more or less. Vistirnam, very wide and long. Apashyan, they saw. Sumahat, very great. Saraha, reservoir of water. Mahat, great soul. Manaha, mind. Iva, like. Su'acham, clear. Prasanna, joyful. Salila, water. Ashayam, taken shelter of. Translation. While traveling, the Pracetās happened to see a great reservoir of water which seemed almost as big as the ocean. The water of this lake was so calm and quiet that it seemed like the mind of a great soul. And its inhabitants, the aquatics, appeared very peaceful and happy to be under the protection of such a watery reservoir. Purport. The word Sasamudra means near the sea. The reservoir of water was like a bay, for it was not very far from the sea. The word upa, meaning more or less, is used in many ways, as in the word upapati, which indicates a husband more or less, that is to say, a lover who is acting like a husband. Upa also means greater, smaller, or nearer. Considering all of these points, the reservoir of water which was seen by the Pracetās while they were traveling was actually a large bay or lake. And unlike the sea or ocean, which has turbulent waves, this reservoir was very calm and quiet. Indeed, the water was so clear that it seemed like the mind of some great soul. There may be many great souls, Gyanis, yogis, and bhaktas, or pure devotees, are also called great souls, but they are very rarely found. One can find many great souls amongst yogis and Gyanis, but a truly great soul, a pure devotee of the Lord, who is fully surrendered to the Lord, is very rarely found. Sammahatma sudurlabha, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse text 19. A devotee's mind is always calm, quiet, and desireless because he is always anyabhilashita shunyam, having no desire other than to serve Krishna as his personal servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover. Due to his association with Krishna, a devotee is always very calm and cool. It is also significant that within that reservoir, all the aquatics were also very calm and quiet. Because the disciples of a devotee have taken shelter of a great soul, they become very calm and quiet and are not agitated by the waves of the material world. This material world is often described as an ocean of nescience. In such an ocean, everything is agitated. The mind of a great devotee is also like an ocean or a very large lake, but there is no agitation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 41, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana. Those who are fixed in the service of the Lord are not agitated by anything. It is also stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 22, Yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. Even if he suffers some reversals in life, a devotee is never agitated. Therefore, whoever takes shelter of a great soul or a great devotee becomes pacified. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 19, text 149, it is stated, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Otoib Shanta. A devotee of Lord Krishna is always peaceful because he has no desire, whereas the yogis, karmis, and jnanis have so many desires to fulfill. One may argue that the devotees have desires, for they wish to go home, back to Godhead. But such a desire does not agitate the mind. Although he wishes to go back to Godhead, a devotee is satisfied in any condition of life. Consequently, the word mahan manaha is used in this verse to indicate that the reservoir of water was as calm and quiet as the mind of a great devotee. And again, translation, while traveling, the Pracetās happened to see a great reservoir of water which seemed almost as big as the ocean. The water of this lake was so calm and quiet that it seemed like the mind of a great soul, and its inhabitants, the aquatics, appeared very peaceful and happy to be under the protection of such a watery reservoir. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're reading here such a wonderful purport, right? Prabhupada is pulling out so many depths of meaning in this text. And of course, Srila Prabhupada's purports are always doing this. Prabhupada has put so much effort and so much endeavor into producing these purports, right? These purports, they're the result of a digestion of the Bhagavatam, right? Of an interface with the Bhagavatam, of a sincere encounter with the Bhagavatam. We'll discuss a little bit more about that as we go on today, but there's something to be seen in how the Acharyas churn so much out of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? How many implications Srila Prabhupada has drawn out in this purport. We recently celebrated the Tirobhav festival of Srila Prabhupada, and we celebrated, of course, his disappearance, right? And Vyas Puja, Avirbhav, disappearance day, Tirobhav. Often people will make offerings, everyone will come together, everyone will be so excited, right? Everyone will be saying, Jai Srila Prabhupada, right? Everyone will be crying, oh Prabhupada, you saved my life, right? Everyone will be spinning and dancing, and there'll be so much excitement, right? And of course it's good to be excited about Srila Prabhupada, right? But if we are excited about Prabhupada, if we love Prabhupada as much as we say we love Prabhupada, what does Prabhupada always say about Krishna? Right? He says, if you love me, you love my dog, right? He says, if you love me, you love the things I love. And Prabhupada loved many things, but there is very few things he loved less than sentimentalism, and there's very few things he loved more than this endeavor of book distribution and the production of his literature. Right? It's very simple, it's very easy to become very happy and excited about the idea of Prabhupada, about the form of Prabhupada, right? It's so easy to get excited about that. Because when we have darshan of Prabhupada, as beautiful as Prabhupada is, and as much as we should have darshan of him, right? That does not challenge us. It does not make us question ourselves being in Maya. And we can go and we can stand in front of Prabhupada and we can say, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. But what are we saying Jai to? Well, if we are not reading Prabhupada's books, it can't be Prabhupada. We can use the word, but is the meaning there, is the essence there? Until we know what Prabhupada has conveyed in his books, until we know what he has conveyed in his teachings, Jai Srila Prabhupada is an empty statement, right? We can feel happy somehow by the mercy of Prabhupada's disciples, somehow by the mercy of Prabhupada's devotees, my life has turned for the better. right? But is that really the height of affection? Is that the height of love? That my life has become better because of somebody else's presence? Or is the height of love and affection that what you care about so much is something I will care about? Right? Prabhupada, he said this many times, right? That these books are the essence of his mission. And of course we know, so often if you hear any remembrances of Srila Prabhupada, every day, right? So many visitors would come, so many guests, right? They would visit all of the temples, dignitaries, and Prabhupada, he would meet all of them, he would discuss with all of them, right? You hear these stories of 20-year-old sannyasis and brahmacharis, right, being completely exhausted with the day, right? I remember I was hearing from one personal servant of Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying, by the end of the day, you'd hit the pillow and you'd just pass out, right? Your head would hit the pillow, you'd pass out. But then, he said, what would happen is whenever any of us would need to go to the bathroom, or we'd have some disturbance in our sleep, and we'd sort of get up and move around, right? Our heads, they hit the pillows and we fell asleep, but we'd hear Prabhupada in his room, composing his books. Prabhupada 3 times our age, right? And what is he doing in his moments of rest? He's taking shelter in the satisfaction in producing his books. I heard from one Prabhupada disciple very sweetly, he said, when he saw that himself, right, he would do that every night while Prabhupada was visiting the temple, right? He would wake up in the middle of the night and he would just watch, right? He would just watch Prabhupada composing his books. And as he would watch Prabhupada doing that, as he would engage in that, he realized that yes, Prabhupada said that ISKCON is his body, and that is true. But Prabhupada's books are his soul. And that is where Prabhupada has expressed his heart. So, if we wish to cry, if we wish to get all choked up, if we wish to get all emotional, it shouldn't be over some vague feelings of what we think Prabhupada is, but over what Prabhupada has presented as himself, as what Prabhupada has presented as his heart. He has put so much effort into the composition of these books, right? We can cry over the Vapu of Prabhupada, but we should cry over the Vani as well. And if we have to cry over one, it should be the Vani. That's where Prabhupada has expressed himself fully. And then when we do so, we will naturally cry over the Vapu of Prabhupada, right? They're non-separable. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada, he has given us something so valuable. And we see in this purport, uppa, right? Meaning more or less. And Prabhupada gives a nice example of the person who is more or less a husband. But we also see uppa means greater, smaller, and nearer. This is a very interesting word. We see this comes up often. Upanishad. The Upanishads, if we read them, I remember when I was studying Sanskrit in university, we studied the invocation of each Upanishad, right? Om Purnam Madaha Purnamidam, right? And so we studied it literally, right? What each word means. And when we all wrote it literally, it made no sense, right? This comes from this, and this is complete, and therefore it's all complete, right? I'll never forget, we were going through, and then at the end, one of the other students, he was like, Tilak, what does this mean? He was shaking his head. We were all so confused, and the Upanishads are confusing. They're meant to be so. Because Upanishad, come here, come close and listen. The Upanishads were composed in such a way that they're confusing, that they invite us to take a guru, right? When we read Shastra and it's confusing, that's not because the Shastra is wrong. It's not because the Shastra is badly composed. It's because the Shastra is inviting us to take shelter of Guru. Upanishad, upa, near. Come near and listen. Come near and hear. Come near to what, right? Not the book. It doesn't say come near and read. Come near and listen. So this is the nature of the Vedic literature. It can be confusing, it can be unclear. And once again, Prabhupada has given us these purports, right? Come near and listen. An invitation to study these books, to study this philosophy, to understand it deeply, because when we hear it from the Guru, it becomes clear, right? So many morning walks Prabhupada's disciples would say, this is so complicated, what you've talked about. This is so complex. This is such a sophisticated idea. But when I hear it from you, Prabhupada, it makes sense, right? And we see this. I remember once one youth group, they were doing some reading together. This was like 6 years ago or so. And they finished reading Nectar of Instruction, and they were all having a vote. Which book should we read next, right? And they went through a different list of ideas, and eventually they decided to read Brahma Samhita. The group fell apart. They stopped reading. I think they read like 3 texts in, right? This literature is complex, and Prabhupada is so merciful, right? With so much depth, he's given it in such a simple way. So Prabhupada's books, they're such a valuable thing, opening it up. Upanishad. And then, of course, we also have... now I'm mind-blanking. What's the word for a fast? Upavas, right? Upavas. We have upavas as well. Once Prabhupada, he was walking on a morning walk, right? And one disciple said, Prabhupada, on Ekadashi we have fasting, right? And Prabhupada said, no, it is a feast, it is a festival, right? And of course this doesn't make sense. I mean, sometimes it makes sense these days. What do we have? We have Ekadashi pizzas, we have Ekadashi tacos, Ekadashi rotis, Ekadashi cakes, right? I remember I was in Mayapur once, and it was Ekadashi, and I was really feeling hungry. I missed dinner prasad, and so I thought, hunger is a good excuse for sense gratification. And I went to the store where they were selling these Ekadashi pizzas. They use potatoes to make the base, right? Anyway, so I sat down and I was eating the pizza, and Prithu Prabhu, I don't know, do any of you know Prithu Prabhu? He's Prabhupada's disciple in Germany. He did a lot of the preaching in Germany. He was, very, very prominent in Germany for a while. So anyway, so I talked to Prithu Prabhu earlier in the day, and I managed, to receive some of his transcendental association. And anyway, so I talked to him earlier in the day, and then just then, he, for some reason, is walking into the temple, right? And he sees me, and he looks, and he says, Prabhu, Yamaraj, he sees everything. And then he walked into the temple. So we don't associate Ekadashi with feasting. But upavas, right? Vas means to dwell, to live, right? And upa means near, right? Upavas, it means an opportunity for us not to dwell and live in our senses where we are normally living, but an opportunity for us to dwell and live near the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is Upavas, and therefore it is a feast. Krishna has an opportunity on this Ekadashi day to feast on all the devotion that all the devotees have in their giving up their khichdi. Actually, I notice this every Ekadashi, who likes khichdi really, right? No one. But in Ekadashi, I'm like, khichdi is so wonderful, khichdi is so nice. I wake up and I think, I miss khichdi so much. It's the nicest thing ever. It reveals to you the mind, right? Anyways, so in this way, Upanishad, Upavas, so many ways we can see this term is being deployed. But of course here we see Prabhupada, he's using it to refer to the minds of the great devotees, right? Undisturbed. And such is the nature of the great devotees. I was brought Bhagavad Gita today, and there's a few purports that reminded me of this section. So I thought rather than writing them out by hand, I'll just bring the Gita with me. And the first is a purport from chapter 6, text 10. Which is where Krishna starts describing the nature of the transcendentalist and the transcendentalist's activities. And I'll just read out the English. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. And then Prabhupada writes really nicely in the purport. He says, in order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. This is very interesting, right? We don't often hear this, to stay in seclusion, right? What do we always hear, right? Sadhu Sangha, right? We hear this all the time, but what is this about seclusion, right? Prabhupada goes on, he should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. And then Prabhupada goes on, and then he says, a Krishna-conscious person knows well that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. And then if we go in chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, in text 52, it's 51 to 53 in Prabhupada's edition, but I'm referring to text 52 of them, we see that Krishna gives, right, these various qualities of a person who is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. And one of these qualities, right, is Vivikta Sevi, a person who lives in a secluded place. So I thought these are interesting descriptions, right, of such a personality. We also see, and I didn't earmark the page, so I won't waste everyone's time flicking through, but I think it's in chapter 13, it's in the earlier part of chapter 13. It describes the qualities of this intelligent person, right? And one of those qualities is this person lives secluded, right? Away from others. And so I thought this was rather interesting, because when we're hearing here the descriptions in the Bhagavad Gita, right, and Prabhupada himself is evoking the Gita a lot in this purport, right? When we hear in the Gita the descriptions of such a person, of a great mind, we hear they're secluded away, hidden, right? Of course, there's many different ways to understand this. But one understanding that I've heard, right, that I found was rather interesting, is that this refers to the bhajan of the Vaishnav, right? This refers to the fact that the Vaishnav must have their own sadhana, right? And of course we do that sadhana in the presence of Vaishnavas. We do that sadhana in sadhu sangha, right? But we must have moments where it is us and we are chanting the holy name, and it is us in the holy name. We must have moments where it is us and we are reading Prabhupada's books, and it is us and Prabhupada's books, and we are taking time to digest what we have been given, right? I heard His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu, he was giving class on one of these verses, and he said, Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, right? The great preaching acharya, the lion acharya, right? The inaugurator of the playing of the Brihat Mridanga, right? This great Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, right? He spent quite a few years chanting japa, right? In the dham, cultivating some realization. Of course, our Srila Prabhupada had a much more, how can we say, demanding timeline to work with. And so of course our culture in ISKCON is not that, and that is good. Not good that it's different necessarily, but good that we follow Srila Prabhupada's mood and culture, right? But still, Prabhupada so strictly, even in light of that, prescribed 16 rounds, right? And so strictly he said that we must chant our 16 rounds, that we must attend, wake early, right? Attend some morning program, that we must hear from Bhagavatam daily. Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada did not inaugurate this, right? Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada was actually somewhat flexible if people missed their rounds. There's many instances where Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, when somebody would miss their rounds, he wouldn't take much of a big deal of it. But of course we know our Srila Prabhupada made a very big deal of it, right? So famously we know when devotees would complain, right? Oh, but Prabhupada, I'm not able to sleep if I chant my rounds. And Prabhupada says, then that's fine, right? Sleep 2 hours less, but finish your rounds. Why is this? Because even though Prabhupada is inaugurating, right, this demanding mission, right, of giving ourselves fully to the preaching of Harinam Sankirtan, to giving ourselves fully to services, not secluding ourselves in bhajan and then emerging like a butterfly out of a cocoon from our bhajan. Even though Prabhupada is giving this, he is still so strictly making sure that there is some aspect of seclusion, that there is some aspect of sadhana where we are developing our own qualities. Because what else will we preach? What else will we give? Right? Does this make sense? So in this way, living alone, living secluded, it's so important. And in this way, we are able to digest and give something. Right? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that preaching, it is not enough to capture like prisoners the ideas of our acharyas. He says it is not enough that we take these ideas and we make them the prisoners of our mind. Right? Prabhupada has said this one thing, right? Prabhupada, he has said this one thing, and now I'll repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and never think once, what does it mean? That means to turn ideas into prisoners, and it means to kill the movement of Krishna consciousness. I remember once when I was a angsty teenager, right? And I remember I was blasting some sort of really, depressing music, about something about heartbreak or something, right? And I remember I was playing it and I was listening to it and I was getting all emotional and, all this sort of nonsense, right? And I remember my mother heard it and she just burst into laughter. She was like, what is this kid listening to? What's he thinking about? What does he know about heartbreak, right? Because what did I know about heartbreak? Nothing, right? But I felt, wow, these words resonate so much with me, right? But I had no realization of them. That is what we are like with Srila Prabhupada's books. We are just like an angsty teenager. Wow, this resonates so much with me. But does it? Right? Do we actually sit down with these words and do we digest them and do we experience them? No. Right? We think this sounds nice. Now I'm going to tell it to other people. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Right? Isn't this what we do? This sounds nice. Wow, this sounds so cool. Right? This is a nice idea. I heard once from one sadhu. He said, we don't like Krishna, right? We like the idea of liking Krishna. That's all that we have, right? We don't love Krishna. We love the idea of loving Krishna. That's all we have. So this is an important thing. We have to come into encounter with these things. Because we read this purport and we'll hear, because disciples of a devotee have taken shelter of a great soul, they become very calm and quiet and not agitated by the waves of the material world. When I read that, I thought, that's not me. I thought I've taken shelter of a great sadhu. That's what I thought, but that's not me. But have we taken shelter of a great sadhu? Are we plastering them around? My guru is so-and-so. This is my guru. Hari Bhakti Vilas says that we have to hide the japamala and the guru. What does this mean? For so many of us, guru is like a pet. Oh, how cute, how sweet. Oh. Look at my guru, so sweet, so wonderful. Oh, I love my guru so much. And then our minds are agitated because we have not taken shelter. Sorry, I'm giving a heavy class today, I don't know why, but we have not taken shelter of the guru, and therefore our minds are agitated. Therefore our minds are disturbed. The guru is not there for our enjoyment. The guru is not there for us to sentimentally, again cry and be happy and, The guru is not a fashion accessory where we get to say, I am a disciple of so-and-so and so-and-so. The guru is a person whose vani we internalize and we try to have some realization of. And if we do so, then our minds will become calm and quiet and not agitated by the waves of the material world. But until we really encounter the Guru's Vani, until we really serve it, then there will be no substantial realization. So in this way, we must learn to become secluded. We must learn to have time with Srila Prabhupada's books. Once Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and then I'll speak of pastime soon. I haven't spoken of pastime yet. I'm just saying ideas, but Gaur Kishore Das Babaji once was sitting down and chanting, right? And some of his students, some of his enthusiasts came up to him and they said, Babaji Maharaj, there is a Rath Yatra festival happening. What should we do? And then Gaur Kishore Das Babaji said, of course you should go. Go celebrate Rath Yatra. Go have a great time. Then most of them went, to Rath Yatra. They all went and they had fun. Then Gorkishore Das Babaji, he began to laugh. And he laughed and laughed and laughed as the days went on, and they were all gone. And the disciples who had stayed with Gorkishore Das Babaji, they said, Guru Maharaj, why are you laughing? And he said, they've all gone to have prasad and look at beautiful women. That is what they've gone for. They have not gone to see Jagannath. They've gone to eat nice halva and look at the pretty girls who have come to Rath Yatra. And so he was laughing because they cheated themselves out of Krishna. Right? We must learn at one point to become secluded. Right? We must learn not to take pleasure in the outside world, but to sit and serve Harinam. Right? We always say, I want to taste the holy name, I want to taste the joys of the holy name, wow, I love kirtan, I love kirtan. But at what point do we think, I'm meant to serve kirtan? Right? I'm meant to serve the holy name. We think, wow, all of this, I'm saying this about myself, I'm not saying this in an accusatory tone, right? Kolikale nam rupe Krishna avatar, nam hoite hoy shorbo jogat nishtar. The holy name is Krishna himself, right? And we're talking about enjoying him. How far gone are we? How far away are we from the highest goals of spiritual life, right? So in this way, Gorkishore Das Babaji, he emphasized this. We must learn to become secluded, to sit with the holy name, to serve the holy name. And in this way, we can grow a little bit in Krishna consciousness. And in this way, our minds can begin to become quiet. We can begin to experience desirelessness. So, we hear this. And we see that often we are not in such a condition, right? Bhakti Dhir Damodar Maharaj, he raises the question. We know that Brahma at one point becomes lusty for who? Or in his own daughter. It's kind of not a very pleasant thing to discuss, right? And we know Haridas Thakur, who is none other than Brahma himself, right? Who does he become lusty after? Harinam. Very nice. Harinam, right? Even Maya Devi herself comes, right? Maya Devi herself comes and she tries to seduce Haridas Thakur, right? And of course we don't want to criticize Brahma, but becoming lusty in the way he became lusty is, even most people in this material world on earth will be able to resist or not even have such thoughts emerge, right? And yet Haridas Thakur, we are all seduced by Maya here, right? And yet Haridas Thakur was not. So Bhakti Dhir Damodar Maharaj, he said, what was the difference? It's the same personality. Haridas Thakur and Brahma, they're the same person. What's the difference? What made Haridas Thakur resist but Brahma not? Oh, we're all getting locked and loaded. What made one resist and the other not? Bhakti Dhir Damodar Maharaj, he makes a very nice point. He says that Brahma was having to do management seva, but Haridas Thakur was not. Brahma is having to manage everything. Of course, this is not a critique of managers or management or anything. I think we're very fortunate, especially in our Sydney temple, to have such wonderful management of our temple. I know I'm very, very happy. We have very empowering and encouraging management. But there's something to be said, right, about the mindset that one has to produce, right? That one has to produce. The moment we start feeling that we have responsibility over someone, it becomes much harder to maintain stable. And that's why we are blessed in Sydney. Because often, when somebody takes up the seva of management through no fault of their own, they're encountered with much greater obstacles. Because you have to take up this mindset of this is good, this is not good, this is good, this is bad, right? Simplicity becomes harder to maintain. It can be maintained, but it becomes much harder to maintain. So in this way we see that the person whose mind was perhaps the most agitated in all of Srimad Bhagavatam, right, was a person who the Vrijvasis would take great effort to worship. They would create great preparations for him. Of course, this is our dear Indra, right? We see Indra, he's agitated again and again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam. Constantly in a cycle of agitation. And why is that? He is manager of managers, right? He is here in this material world and he's lording it over, right? So therefore we see Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribhir Edhamana Madappuman Naiva Hartya Abhitatum Vai. What's the final line? Tam Kinchana Gocharam, right? Those people who are intoxicated by education, by wealth, by material ambition, their minds will not be able to render bhajan unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But that person who is exhausted with this world and could not care for its ambitions at all, such a person can engage in Krishna bhajan. So we see that Indra, therefore, is constantly agitated. And of course, we know Krishna, at one point, he takes away all of these offerings, right? Krishna, he goes through his edgy teenage atheist phase and he tells his parents, what's the point of doing all of these pujas? What's the point of making all of these offerings, right? Why are we doing all of this all the time? It's the water cycle. The sun hits the water, right? The water evaporates, it forms clouds, and then the rains come again, right? Where's God in this? There's no God here, right? Why is Indra necessary? Why are we worshipping this personality in this way? And initially, it's cute, right? They all find it cute. Oh, look at the kid, having his first sort of philosophical thoughts, right? Veda Vid Vedanta Krid having his first philosophical opinions, right? And they find it cute. Oh, look at this little kid, right? But then they slowly think, he's kind of got a point. And he's telling us Govardhan is taking much better care of us than Indra is. Maybe we'll do Govardhan puja as well. We know, famous pastime, right? Of course, at this point, Indra, he starts feeling a terrible headache. Something's not right in the world. I used to have such a nice meal on this day, right? I used to be invited, right? It's almost like not getting invited to a wedding. I remember I didn't get invited to a wedding. I got so upset because I knew the prasad would be good. I was not too worried about the festivities, but you miss out on prasad, and it's really the worst feeling ever. I'm sure we've all experienced this. Maybe we're out at college or we're out at work, and then we come to the temple and we realize we've missed the feast. We realize we've missed dinner. When you miss evening prasad, that really ruins your day, doesn't it? We've all experienced this, right? You're really, you put your head against the wall and you think, maybe there is no God, You think like, why do bad things happen to good people, And this is what we feel like, right, when we miss prasad. So as much as we mock Indra, so every time I hear this pastime, I think, I would probably become a bit atheistic too if Krishna ate my prasad a second time, then I would start getting really annoyed. So perhaps we can't blame Indra too much, right? So in this way, Indra is getting really upset. He becomes so mad. What does he do? All of the clouds in his hands, all of the weapons in his hands, he pours them out on Govardhan, on Vrindavan. And we can think, my mind's been disturbed before. I've been agitated before, right? I've been so agitated and annoyed by people before. And you know what? And I think we can all agree, sometimes that agitation has been against other devotees. Right? Sometimes it isn't just because somebody cuts me off while I'm driving. Right? Sometimes I'm at the temple and I'm talking to another devotee and the way they talk just irritates me so much. What can I say? I have those thoughts, right? I think we all, at one point or another, have had those thoughts. But no matter how agitated I've gotten, I've never gotten so agitated that I decided to kill everyone in the temple. I never thought I'm going to turn up tomorrow. I'm going to murder every single person in this temple. But Indra, he's getting that agitated, right? He's seeing all the Vrajvasis and he's thinking, I'm going to kill every last one of them. I'm going to flood this place. So no one's ever been quite as agitated as Indra was in that moment. And of course, we know Indra, he then pours out all of this rain. And of course we know Krishna, right? Left arm, pinky finger, right? Smiling. Krishna's smile in Chaitanya Charitamrita is described as the most sweet quality of his. And Prabhupada says in the purport that it has what exactly does it say in the purport? I'll remember it later and then I'll say it. But what it's described as is it's described as a moon. Krishna's moon-like smile, right? Why moon-like? Because of course the moon is soothing, right? The sun is intense, but the moon is soothing. So Krishna is there with his soothing moon-like smile, right? Having fun, right? His pinky. It's not even a competition. And Indra, he's working so hard, right? Indra is laboring and laboring. All of the strength he has in his hand, all of his Shakti is there, right? All of whatever Shakti is in the hand of Indra poured out on Vrindavan. And Krishna doesn't even use his whole hand, right? There we see. So many people, they'll question, oh, Krishna is one of the devatas, right? So many times we'll hear Hindus say this, you worship Krishna, I worship Ganesh, right? We hear this often. And of course that's nice. Why should we disturb them? Well, we should disturb them because because Prabhupada wanted us to disturb them. Actually, now that I say that, I take it back. Prabhupada wanted us to disturb people. But in a nice way, not in a way that agitates them is my point, right? Why should we agitate people unnecessarily, right? If they are ready to hear, then we can disturb them a tiny bit. We can see, so I don't want to tangent too much, but we can see so wonderfully how Krishna Chaitanya disturbed people, right? How he went to Gopal Bhatta Goswami's father, whose name I'm also mind-blanking now. Who can tell me? What's his name again? Yes, Venkata Bhatta, right? How he went to Venkata Bhatta. And how did he agitate him? He agitated him, but he agitated him by joking, right? Joking back and forth, until at one point Venkata Bhatta says, stop joking, this is inappropriate, right? And then Mahaprabhu says, but am I wrong? And Venkata Bhatta says, no, you're not. And in this way he comes to become a Gauriya Vaishnav. So we have to think, how did Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agitate people, right? So often we become filled with our ego and we just want to beat somebody in the fight. We get annoyed. This person doesn't see the world I do, so I need to slap them on the head, right? This is what preaching becomes for so many of us. Slap this person on the head. They don't agree with me. That was not Mahaprabhu's way. How did Mahaprabhu change Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya's mind? Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya was the greatest Mayavadi, right? And he spoke for days and days and days explaining Mayavad philosophy. And how did Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disturb him? He didn't speak a single word, right? In his silence, he refuted the great philosophy of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. Does this make sense? He didn't. And then, within that silence, at one point, Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, he becomes curious. Why is this boy not speaking, right? Why is he not talking? And then he asks him. And then in this way, Mahaprabhu agitates him. So anyways, so often people, they'll say, you worship Krishna, I'll worship Ganesh, like this. I remember there's this one person, he would always come, and I mean no disrespect, I genuinely, of course we give so much respect to the demigods, they're at such an elevated position, right? But I'll never forget this one person, he used to attend the Sunday feast often, and every time he'd see me, he'd say, Toshan Prabhu, I really see why you guys like Krishna so much. But he's no Brihaspati. And I was like, what? I was like, what? He's the only person in my life who I've ever heard say that. He's no Brihaspati. Oh, okay. Dandavat pranams. So in this way, I'll never forget this person. But what do we see? Krishna. Indra, he's so agitated in his mind, he's so angry, he can't control his anger, right? And Krishna's just having fun. The difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the demigods, as glorious as the demigods are. Krishna isn't even struggling yet, and he will never struggle. Leela Purushottam. So in this way, we see Krishna, he holds up Govardhan, and at one point Indra, he sort of realizes, wait a second, I think I've made a mistake, right? I think I've done something wrong. And so he goes and he thinks, well, what do we do when we've made a mistake, when we need some advice? We think, who is the smartest friend I have? And who's the smartest friend Indra has? Sorry? Not yet. That's not the first person he goes to. Brahma, right? He thinks, I've only got one head, but he's got four. He'll crunch the numbers for me, right? And so he goes to Brahma, and he says, Brahma, I've really messed up this time. I really don't know what to do. And Brahma says, well, what did you do? Tell me. Share your heart, right? I'll help you with your problem. He says, I kind of got a bit deluded about Krishna's position, and I kind of messed. And then Brahma says, sorry, I've been there. I've done that too. I think I'm the wrong person to ask. I really think you should ask someone else. With all my four heads, and I made that mistake too. And so he says, go to Surabhi. And again, there's different explanations given. Why, he says, go to Surabhi? Why go to this cosmic cow, right? Why go to her? But one explanation that I think works very well with the intelligence of Brahma is that he goes because the cow represents simplicity, right? The cow represents simple living. Every time, if we all should go to New Gokul and support the farm there. Right? Prabhupada was so passionate about these farm projects. Right? But every time I go to New Gokul and I see the devotees there, Kaliya Krishna Prabhu and all of the assorted devotees there, I see this is the incarnation of simplicity. Right? This is the incarnation of simplicity here. So the cow represents simplicity, represents coming in touch with reality, right? Big position, right? I'm a CEO. I'm a partner. I'm a this. I'm a that. Right? All of these things are there, but at the end of the day, we'll all drink a cup of milk. Right? At the end of the day, this is a touching of reality, and so the Surabhi cow represents that this is the advice Indra needed. Indra didn't need something intellectual or sophisticated in that sense. What he needed was simplicity. What he needed was to just be well, he's not a human being, but you get what I mean. Be a human being, right? And in this way he goes and he gets wonderful advice. And then of course he goes and he repents to Krishna. Beautiful chapters of the Bhagavatam, right? And as he repents to Krishna, it's very interesting. I wrote it down in my phone, the verse. Krishna says, Gamyatam shakrabhadram vaha kriyatam me nushashanam sthityatam swadikareshu yuktairva stambhavarjitaihi. Indra, you may now go. Execute my order and remain in your appointed position as king of heaven, but be sober without false pride. Shakrabhadram vaha. This is what Krishna says. He says, don't just go. He doesn't just dismiss him. He says, Bhadra, with auspiciousness, I'm giving you my blessings, right? There are no hard feelings here. Because often we wonder, what do we do when our minds are agitated, right? And again, none of our minds have been so agitated that we want to come and kill everyone in the temple, right? None of us have been that angry. I mean, maybe some of us have been that angry, in which case, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I don't know what to say. Your anger is a vibhuti of Krishna. That's all I can say if you get that angry. But if you do, that's fine, because Indra got that angry, right? And how many of us could commit such a great aparad, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he prays in his prayers, in his bhajans. He says, Krishna, bless me that I may respect everyone with the respect that they are due. With the respect that they are due. What does that mean? That means that, with all due respect, as much as even the new devotee who has chanted Hare Krishna only once in their life, even though they are superior to me, and they are my senior, and I should understand that, I will still give a little bit more respect to somebody who has perhaps been chanting the holy name for 50 years and has been distributing Srila Prabhupada's books for 50 years, right? We all do this. This is natural. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is good. This is appropriate. We should give respect as it is due. And who should we respect more than the Vrijvasis? And who should we not try to drown more than the Vrijvasis? So for this reason, none of us have committed aparad at the level that Indra is committing it, right? And here we see, puffed up in his position, right? Agitated in his position, right? And what is the root of it? The root of why that position is difficult is not because he felt he was greater than he is necessarily, right? That's not the issue in Govardhan Leela, right? The issue isn't that Indra necessarily really has an absurdly high view of himself, right? He is the king of the Devatas, right? It's that he felt that that position was an opportunity for him to enjoy. He fell into the enjoying mindset. And for that reason, he is having this issue. And for that reason, when we see our situation, right, even if it is as disciple, if we see that as a situation to enjoy, then good luck. We will commit aparads like Indra did. But if we can rectify that situation, if we can again attain simplicity, right? If we can attain that simplicity at the end, then what is Krishna doing? Bhadra. With blessings, with auspiciousness, right? He is saying, with auspiciousness, you go back. I only have good feeling towards you. This is what Krishna is saying, right? With good feeling, you go. Now, what's interesting is Jiva Goswami makes a point on this verse, right? Jiva Goswami says that actually Indra went, but he once again became victim to his false pride. He was not able to properly adjust in his mind. Because that's why we're here with the Parijata pastime, right? Indra once again. He becomes agitated and annoyed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead another time, right? So what do we see here? We see a few things. One is that we see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though we will see verses like this, we will see purports like this, and we will feel condemned. I know I felt condemned when I read it, right? What sort of faltu, what sort of useless disciple am I, right? I'm not having peace in my mind. I'm agitated and angry all the time. I'm sad about things. I'm annoyed about things. I'm stressed about things all the time. Not transcendental, right? But we see that once again, if we rectify ourselves, Krishna is only giving his well wishes that we can put ourselves in the proper condition, right? Because again, none of us did anything as bad as Indra did. And Krishna is wishing him auspiciousness. But what we also see is that the ball is in our court, right? We can't just rely on Krishna's mercy. And once again, we come to sentimentalism, right? Oh, Prabhupada, you're so merciful. Oh, Prabhupada, you're so merciful. Please take away all of my sinful activities. Oh, Prabhupada, you're so merciful. Yes, Prabhupada's mercy will take away our sinful activities, but we have to accept it. We have to at least sincerely want it. We have to implement his mercy. What is his mercy? What is the mercy of the Guru? We say this in abstract, right? Guru's mercy, Guru Kripa, Guru Kripa. What is Guru Kripa? Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Right? He's awakening Divya Gyan in the heart. This is Guru's mercy. So once again, we have to read Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada's mercy will give us everything. And where is that mercy found? It is found in his books. Once I heard, now I'll wrap up soon, I'm not keeping anyone from breakfast, but once I was hearing Madhavananda Prabhu, he was speaking on this point, and he said, we say, Prabhupada, Shakti Avesh Avatar, right? We say this so often, and he said, what is the Shakti Avesh, right? What is the empowerment of Prabhupada? And of course, he said he doesn't have a strict praman, so I guess this is a realization, but it's a realization of a very senior devotee, right? And he said the empowerment of Prabhupada is found in his books. Because it was we say Prabhupada's empowerment is that he preached Krishna consciousness all over the world. Absolutely correct, right? Prabhupada is... it really is a thing. I remember when I was studying in university, we would read stories of these like medieval preachers, right? Who would preach Christianity in Europe and stuff like that. And our professors, we would read the numbers, we'd read the statistics, right? And our professors would say, like, there's no way this is true. This is just some excited disciple who's made up the numbers. And I remember thinking, we would say the exact same thing about Prabhupada if his pastimes went 50 years ago. It's unbelievable what Srila Prabhupada has achieved, right? Completely unbelievable. If Prabhupada had manifested his pastimes 200 years earlier, we would all sort of think, exaggeration. It didn't happen, right? Anyways, but how did Prabhupada do this? How did he manifest this? Prabhupada himself told us on the foundation of the production and distribution of his books. So where is that Shakti manifested? In Prabhupada's books. So in this way, we have to encounter that, reading Prabhupada's books, and that way we can attain the mercy. So by cooperating with the mercy that Prabhupada has given us, by receiving the mercy Prabhupada has given us, by relishing his books, by studying his books, and not just being like an angsty teenager repeating them and not knowing what they're meaning, but actually going in and realizing those words, then we will attain the mercy, and then we will not make the mistake. We might one day decide to flood a village of Vaishnavas. Again, I really pray none of us do, but we might one day do that. But we won't have a parijata event, because we will cooperate with the injunction of Krishna. We will cooperate with the injunction of the spiritual master. And once we realize that, then we will be able to preach. Then we will be able to do what Prabhupada has done. Prabhupada has digested these books. Is it that Prabhupada never wants us to have realizations of our own? Is it that Prabhupada never wants us to engage and digest these shastras? Is it that Prabhupada doesn't want us to do any of these things? No, Prabhupada wants us to go deep in these books. Prabhupada wants us to walk in that same land of faith. He wants us to walk in that same land of faith that he is walking in. And then we can describe it in the same way that he has described it. That is what we have to do. And when we do that, there'll be no agitation in our mind, but there'll be agitation in our soul, right? There'll be the deepest agitation. Bhakti Siddhanta, I am actually wrapping up at this point. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he said, bhajan of Krishna begins on the platform of Advaya Gyan Tattva. Advaya Gyan Tattva means impersonal realization. It means to realize you are not this body. Once we have attained peace, once we have realized that we are not this body, that there's nothing that can hurt us, everything is the outpouring of karma. Once we've realized all of these things, at that point we will become agitated in Krishna's bhajan. We will never be free of agitation, truly. But now agitation exists in our mind, and then agitation will exist around Krishna. And in such agitation, we will experience satisfaction. I'll conclude on this sentence. I heard once that it was said, we say this in preaching, Krishna has everything, right? We hear this often. We say, what can I give to Krishna, right? What can you give to the man who has everything? This is a question that often comes up, right? What can you give to the man who has everything? I remember hearing this from one of my Shiksha gurus, and he said, we asked this question in relation to Krishna, but he said it's the wrong question. Because Krishna is not the man who has everything. Krishna does not have everything. He has lost his own heart to his devotees. So the only thing we can give him, the only thing we can give to this person, is our hearts instead. So once our hearts are removed from this world, and we are no longer agitated, we can give them to Krishna and be agitated once again. Agitation is the goal of the Vaishnava. Agitation is the goal of our existence, because that is the one thing we can give. Krishna does not have everything. He does not have his heart. So we should give ours, and that will please him instead. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.